Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This time I wanted to talk a little bit about unexpected purchases. I know we all have these, and sometimes I think they're called impulse buys. But let's start off with this one. Milk and Cheese #1. Now, I've wanted this first printing. This is a book I've wanted for a while, and I always said to myself I would get. So one day I went into my comic book shop, my local comic book shop, and he just happened to have it on the wall. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I said to myself, I've walked around a little bit, and I'm saying to myself, do I get it? I mean, I looked at it. It looks like it's in nice shape, and it is. It's in really, really great shape. I'd say it's probably... Oh, I haven't. It's about an 8.0. It could use a press. It might go up to an 8.5. So it's not a bad copy, and it's not something you see often. But like I said, this is a book I was hoping to run into, but just never really did. And I did that day, and I said, you know what? Let me get it. And it's been with me ever since. Here's another one. a real peculiar one. Labyrinth #1. Now, I've always heard that the Labyrinth miniseries was kind of hard to find. I mean, it's not impossible to find, okay? You can go on eBay, and if you go to a decent comic show, I'm sure you'll find it in a long box or whatever. It's not necessarily a wall book. But knowing that, when I was able to stumble across it, at a comic show, I forget, what was it, a year ago now? I said to myself, and it was priced pretty good. And I was like, It was, again, like with Milk and Cheese. I'm like, I wanted it, but I was thinking about it, walking around a bit, really trying to think about it, and I finally decided, yeah, let me get it. Here's another one. This is an upgrade to X-Men #60. Now, I had a real beater copy that I purchased back in 1993. And when I came back to the hobby, I purchased probably a 6.0. I went to a con, and I was like, oh, let me get this. But this one right here is probably an 8.0, an 8.5 copy. I had no intention of upgrading the recent upgrade back then. I was like, well, I got my 6.0. I'm happy with that because my original copy was a real beater. And I thought that was it, case closed. But then when I went to a specific store here in New Jersey who has a sale twice a year, and I saw this on the wall, and I think it was 50% off. I said, geez. I took a look at it, and I'm like, wow, this is a really nice copy. Why not? So I walked out with it. And it's been my main personal collection copy ever since. Now, here we have another one. We're sticking with X-Men. X-Men #9. Now, it's not this particular copy. It's the book that has the story. Same thing. I walked into the store, and, I had no intention of buying X-Men 9 at that moment before I walked in. Then I saw it, and I was like, I always wanted to get X-Men #9. And so I did. Now, in that case, there was buyer's remorse, because those of you that watched one of my videos, this is an upgrade. Saw my previous video where I talked about that X-Men 9, that it was incomplete. I wasn't, when I came back to the hobby, I wasn't checking books as I should have. I wasn't counting pages and all of that. That's something that I recommend you all do. Make sure you count the pages of your books. You can find out what the page count is by simply going on mycomicshop.com. It's a great resource to find out things like that, and other places, of course. Just do your research. But that's an example of me just going into the store and buying it. But that, unfortunately, has a little bit of a negative story to it. But the copy that I just showed you is the upgrade. So it actually is good at the end. Here we have Vault of Horror #16. This was the very first original EC book I bought. The very first Golden Age book I brought into my collection. I got this at the New York Comic Con, the very first New York Comic Con I went to back in 2014. Again, I had my list of books. If you watched that video, or if you heard me talk about it in previous videos, things that I wanted to get, like the Kamiko Primer #2. That was the big book that I wanted to get for that con, because I liked Grendel and all that. And there was no announcement for Grendel in a movie or a cartoon or anything like that. Oh, I genuinely liked Grendel, and I wanted to get a nice copy. of his first appearance. But an EC book, let alone this one, certainly wasn't on my list. But when I came across this one, I was familiar with some of the stories in this book, Fitting Punishment and Werewolf Concerto, to name two of them. And I said to myself, maybe I should get this. And I looked through it, and what I mean by look through it, it looked like it was in pretty solid shape, and it is. It's a solid 4.0. It might even be a 4.5 after a press or cleaning or whatever. Really nice looking book. Not a bad looking early Volta horror book, 1950s book. And I walked away with it. Here's another one. Now, this one's a low-grade copy, okay? But it's one of those books that, I wasn't looking for. I had no intention of buying, really, in my head at that time. But when I saw it in the store, I started to think about it. Superboy 66. Like I said, this is probably like a 1.5, 1.8 copy. So it's not the best book. Not in the best condition. But it was priced real low. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, So I left. I didn't get it, Like I said, this video is not necessarily books that, you went to the store and you immediately bought. Most of them are. But sometimes it's books that you just really didn't think about getting, but then you thought about it for a little while and you decided to get. And this is, all of these are examples of that. But this one right here, I didn't get that day. I saw it, I was looking at it, and I was like, this might be a book I want to get. And I think a couple weeks later, I called the store again. This was, it wasn't this book. I got this book at a comic shop called the Comics Crypt, which is in Red Bank. It used to be right down the street from Jay and Silent Bob's store. Since then, I think it moved within the last year. But anyway, it was this little store off the beaten path, had a coffin inside it. I mean, what more could you ask for, at least for me? So it was I liked it. But I saw it and I was thinking about it, and I called back a couple weeks later and they still had it, and I went back and I bought it and haven't regretted it. It's like I said, eventually it's probably a book I'm going to upgrade. Because Superboy 66 it's an expensive book. It's not necessarily cheap. It's not a couple $100, for a 4.0 or a 5.0. That's going to cost you a decent amount of money. So I bought it and thought that the price is really good. And definitely, if I decided to sell it, an easy double, possibly triple what I paid for it. But again, getting the first appearance of Bizarro really wasn't, back then at least, a book, something on my mind to get. As I was in other things, like, Batman villains and all that stuff. I had this book for a while now. Here's another one. I've always liked the cover. I've always heard stories about whether or not, if it's actually scarce or not. And I walked into my comic shop, my personal local comic book shop, and I saw it on the wall for what I thought was a decent price back then for probably an 8.0 copy. So here it is. I was like, wow, that's not bad. At this time, unlike when I bought the X-Men #9 a few years before this, I was looking through the pages and making sure it was complete and checking the condition and all of that. And after I looked at it, I was like, wow, this is a really nice looking copy. And he didn't want as much for it, And I said, maybe I should get it. And again, I thought about it and I went back soon after. And I picked it up. Again, another example of a book that, I've heard about, but I've never really thought about adding it to a top 10 list for this year or that year, or a short list of books I want to get relatively soon. It's one of those things that when you go into the store and you see it, and you're like, wow, here it is. I'm like, let me think about that. Now, this is a book, again, from my local comic book store that I always wanted. But again, it wasn't one of the books that I was planning to get at that time. But when I saw it, I knew I could not leave this store without it. It's a low-grade copy. It's probably like a 2.5. One day it will be upgraded. Not right now. But you never know. If I go walk into the store and I see one for the right price, I'll get it. But Shock Suspense Stories number 6, classic cover. This is a cover that I've been familiar with ever since I started collecting comics back in '93. I love it, and it was I was surprised to see it in my comic shop. You know, it's not one of those books, or at least for me, not one of the books that I would walk into a local comic book shop around me and see on a wall, or see in a long box or whatever. It's just that great. He just got it in, and I asked him to price it right then and there for me, and I flipped through it, and it was complete, and made it happen. A couple more here. Here's another one. One more EC. Again, same like with the last one, a book that I eventually wanted to get, but it wasn't something that I was really chasing. But when I saw it for the price it was going for, I said, you know what, why not? Haunt of Fear number 15. It's actually Haunt of Fear number 1, you know, again, with EC and their numbering system and all that. It's actually Haunt of Fear number 1 and the prototype first appearance of the Old Witch. It's a low-grade copy for sure. It's probably like a 2.5, around that range. But it's complete. It's, you know, stable, you know, no long tears or anything. Sorry about the glare. No long tears or anything like that. But hey, usually a very expensive book in a mid-grade copy, or low grade to mid-grade, 4.0 to 6.0. It's not as easy to find as Cryptoterror 17, which is, you know, some argue is the first. Well, there are two Tales from the Crypt number 1s. You got Cryptoterror 17 and Tales from the Crypt 20. You could argue back and forth on which one is really number 1. Or Vault of Horror 12, which is the first Vault of Horror. This one's the, you know, I think one of the hardest to find. Well, it's not super hard. It's not super scarce, but it's expensive, and it's not as commonly found as the other two I just mentioned. Here's another one. At my local comic book store, again, same story with all the other books I've been telling you over and over. I've been reiterating it to you. A book that I wanted, but I just didn't think I was going to be getting anytime soon. You know, I saw it on the wall, and I said, maybe I'll get it. Fantastic Four number 48. I saw it on the wall at my local comic book shop, and I thought about it. I didn't get it the first day, sort of like with a couple others I was talking about. I was thinking like the Superboy 66 and a couple others. I didn't get it the first day. I saw it there, and I was like, you know, maybe. I like the Silver Surfer, but I don't know if I really want to get it at that time. And within a couple of weeks, I went back, and it was still up on the wall, and I was like, maybe I'll get it. And I did. And I'm glad I did. And the last one for this one, again, at my local comic book shop. Yeah, you're going to see that a lot. You know, whenever we buy, whether it's an actual impulse buy that you're happy that you bought, or you regret you bought, or just a story that's similar to an impulse buy like the ones I've been telling you, most of the time you'll find them at your local comic book shop. And that's where a lot of these came from. And the last one is no exception. Incredible Hulk number 1. Incredible Hulk number 1 was never a book that I intended to add to my collection. It never was. I mean, I always said to myself, I'd like to get Amazing Fantasy, Amazing Spider-Man 1, X-Men 1, and all those other cool Marvel Silver Age books. But I was never that big of a fan of Hulk, and I certainly wasn't a big fan of what a 2.5 or a 3.0 or higher, what it was going for, Universal Blue Label. So it's not something that I ever considered getting. But this book and Tales of Suspense 39 and Journey into Mystery 83 and a bunch of other Marvel Silver first appearances came into my local comic book shop, and he had me go through them. I was Amazing Spider-Man 1. I was looking through them. We're looking for the grades and all that stuff. And this was one of the books that I looked through. And he eventually just sent them all off to CGC, and it was restored. You know, you could tell where it's restored. There's a little bit of color touch right over here and a bunch of other little things. But I said to myself, I started thinking, maybe I can get this book. Maybe if I get it for the right price, I wouldn't mind adding it to my collection. And who knows, maybe down the line, I'll sell it, have some other money saved up, and actually get a 2.0 Blue Label. Never say never, right? So I went ahead and I did it. And it's been with me ever since. And, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool having Incredible Hulk number 1 in your collection. Again, especially if it's something that you never thought you would have. Oh, thank you all for watching. I'm probably going to make another one of these videos. I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of other books in my collection that are sort of like impulse buys, sort of everything else I've been talking about throughout this whole video. So hopefully you liked the video. And in the comments below, tell me if you have any similar experiences. You went into a store, it's an impulse buy, or it's something that you never thought you'd buy, you walked away from it, and then eventually you came back and bought it. Let me know. Thank you all for watching. Take care.